By now, dusk was coming. The Hook gang had not checked on us, and the door was locked. We were very hungry but waited for deeper night to make our move. As I mentioned, we were in a warehouse, and our room had no windows, only a small vent with iron bars as thick as fingers. Ricardo clearly planned to keep us locked up, but he did not know those bars were like soft clay to Songjian and me. We spent time looking at the 25 steel plates. At midnight, I climbed to the vent and looked out. 4 strong men stood guard outside the door. Beyond them, the main part of the warehouse was a shared sleeping area for the Hook gang, with at least 100 or 200 men sleeping on the ground. We would have to sneak past them to escape. I whispered the situation to Songjian. He told me to come down, then climbed up himself. With a few quick movements of his hand, 4 faint hissing sounds came from outside. I knew he had hit the guard's pressure points. In Chinese martial arts, the most advanced technique is hitting pressure points to briefly stop an enemy's blood flow, making them unconscious for at least an hour. I could not do it, but Songjian, a master, could. He turned back with a smile, pulled the iron bars loose, and slipped out quietly. I followed, and we moved past the sleeping gang members without a sound, grabbing 2 submachine guns along the way. The 4 guards lay on the ground, their eyes wide but unable to move or speak. Outside the warehouse, the deep night hid our movements. We quickly disappeared into the wild, rough mountains. Then we noticed a peak far away, lit up like daytime by strong lights. 3 or 4 people walked under the light. Songjian and I did not think much of it at first. We found a well-hidden cave to hide in and slept comfortably. The next morning, a loud rumbling sound woke us up. We jumped up and found where the sound was coming from. The noise was coming from the brightly lit peak we had seen last night. At first, we could not tell what it was, but covering our eyes and looking closely, we were very surprised. 2 old-fashioned digging machines were working on the peak. We immediately remembered how Ricardo, during our argument last night, had suddenly seemed confident and left without asking more questions. He had been on Texel Island for years, and since the Hook gang had financial problems, they would not be digging for economic development. Those digging machines were probably looking for something, probably the treasure. The secret words on the steel plates, confusing to us, must have been very clear to Ricardo. The lights last night? He was checking the place. Songjian and I talked for a bit, agreeing our guess was probably close to the truth. We also knew we had to do everything we could to stop Ricardo from getting that money. If it fell into his hands, we would not only fail Old Bai and betray the 7 gangs and 18 societies, but it would cause big problems for the Philippines and the nearby seas. We rushed towards the peak, avoiding clear paths to stay hidden from the Hook gang. We went through thick bushes and thorns. Our clothes were soon dirty and torn. We did not see anyone until we got close to the peak, where we crawled forward, moving slowly to within 7 or 8 yards of the digging machines, hiding in the bushes. The machines had dug a large hole, about 6 feet deep, next to 4 stone statues. Each statue was about 10 feet tall and 3 feet wide, carved with simple Chinese patterns of a phoenix, dragon, tiger, and sparrow. The sight of those statues made our hearts beat fast. Each had a small, 1-inch wide hole at the eyes of the animal carvings. We immediately remembered the words on the 25 steel plates: the eye of the white phoenix, the eye of the red bird, the eye of the white tiger, the eye of the blue dragon, together pierce the golden light, for our brothers to reach the peak. The secret words, impossible to understand before, now made sense on this peak. Ricardo had figured it out last night. Songjian and I were very worried, not sure what to do. At least 20 Hook gang members were on the peak, including Reagan, the American we had fought yesterday. All were armed. Ricardo stood at the edge of the hole, looking down, his face serious, cursing softly. Reagan shouted, "Boss, those Chinese tricked us." Ricardo's face became dark. "What do you know?" Reagan, scolded, became quiet. Ricardo told the 2 digging machine operators to work faster. Seeing they had not found the money yet, we breathed a small sigh of relief. Songjian, very angry, whispered, "Wesley, Ricardo has found the right place. If they keep digging, they will find it." "What do we do?" I was just as worried, sweat appearing on my forehead. Big brother, with your scattering gold across the sky technique, how many can you defeat at once? He thought for a moment. At my best, maybe 10. But they are too spread out, it will not work. I sighed softly. Suddenly, Ricardo made a happy shout. Our hearts sank, thinking he had found something. 2 men jumped into the hole, but all they pulled up was a large rock. Ricardo's face fell. He had thought he had found the treasure. We kept watching until noon, when Ricardo was covered in sweat, still empty-handed. The hole was now almost 12 feet deep, but the old digging machine's arms could not reach any farther. Ricardo waved sharply, telling them to stop. He placed a wooden board he had been carrying on the ground and looked at it closely. Song Jian and I also looked at it. Even though we were a bit far, we could see clearly. Nailed to the board was a piece of paper, a map of the hilltop. The 4 stone statues were the main points, clearly marked. The statues were placed strangely, not in a neat row or square, but spread out randomly, some facing north-south, others east-west, with no clear pattern. The map showed this confusion. We noticed Ricardo had drawn 2 diagonal lines connecting the statues, and the hole was dug exactly where they crossed. Song Jian and I agreed this was probably the correct spot for the treasure. We hoped Ricardo would give up, leaving us to dig later. After looking at the map, Ricardo told the digging machines to move back. Then he sent 12 men into the hole to keep digging by hand. The rest stayed above, throwing out the dirt from below. Originally, about 20 men were on the hilltop. Now, 15 or 16 were working, most in the hole. I looked at Song Jian and whispered, "Big brother, to catch the thief, you catch the leader. Ricardo has the Hook Gang's loyalty. If we defeat him, we might change the situation." Song Jian nodded, his hands feeling the ground. Soon, he grabbed 2 handfuls of sharp stones. His face became serious, his arm bones making clicking sounds as he tensed. After a few minutes, he jumped up, throwing his arms forward. 12 stones shot out like bullets. As the stones flew, I jumped out, hitting the ground and rolling towards Ricardo. Song Jian's stones hit 6 Hook Gang members. 2 others started shooting, bullets flying past, but in that moment, I reached Ricardo. I grabbed his ankle, pulled hard, and with a loud sound, sent him crashing to the ground. He made a wild shout as the men in the hole quickly climbed out. In that moment, I held Ricardo down, taking his pistol and pressing it to his head. I looked at Song Jian and saw him lying on the ground, his left leg covered in blood. My heart sank. It was just the 2 of us against a very cruel group, already a very small chance. With Song Jian hurt, it was impossible. But he was hurt. He pressed his hands to the ground, trying to stand but failing. He gave me a weak smile. "Good thing it's just the thigh." This was no time to wait or panic. I raised my head and shouted in the local language, "Who wants Ricardo dead?" No one answered. I asked again. Still quiet. "Then you all follow my orders," I said. "Nobody move." As I spoke, Song Jian made a sharp cry. I turned around fast to see Reagan running down the hill. I was holding Ricardo, and Song Jian was wounded. Neither of us could chase him. I cursed quietly. The Filipinos respected Ricardo very much and would listen to me while I had him, but what would that American bad guy do? We watched helplessly as Reagan, falling and scrambling, disappeared into the bushes. Soon, shouts came from below. The Hook Gang was very angry. I turned to Ricardo. "You know what you need to do." He nodded quickly. "Tell the men below not to run up here." 2 men stood at the hill's edge, yelling down to stop the gang from rushing up and putting their leader in danger. I added, "Order your men to stop fighting and drop their weapons." Ricardo's eyes burned with anger, but no amount of anger could argue with a gun at his head. He gave the order. The Hook Gang members unwillingly climbed into the hole. I pulled Ricardo a few steps and kicked a submachine gun towards Song Jian. He grabbed it, checked it, and put it next to him. Then he tore his pant leg, used a knife with a horn handle to cut open the wound, took out the bullet, and sprinkled it with a healing powder he carried. Blood came out during his horrible surgery, a very brutal sight. But Song Jian did not even make a sound of pain, only sweating a lot. When he finished bandaging the wound, a few Hook Gang members shouted, "Tough guy." Song Jian stayed on the ground, holding the submachine gun. I pulled Ricardo to the edge of the hole and looked down. The hill's red soil, mixed with tree roots, made digging hard. The hole was now over 10 feet deep, but there was still no sign of the money. I was worried. Even with Ricardo controlled, if we did not find the money, it was all for nothing. With Songjian hurt, even going back was risky. I looked at our surroundings and pulled Ricardo to Songjian's side. "Big brother, what is our next move?" Songjian said, "If things go bad, we will have to rely on the gang members up here." No sooner had he spoken than shouts came from below, mixed with gunshots. Then a loudspeaker sounded Reagan's voice. "Our leader is trapped on the hill. Everyone, attack!" Songjian's face turned pale. I felt a sudden fear. "Hear that, Mr. Ricardo?" Ricardo's face was serious. He was smart enough to know the situation was bad for him. Reagan was using "save the leader" as an excuse to make the gang angry, but his real goal was clear: kill Ricardo and take his place. As Reagan's voice was heard, the shouts below became louder. From above, we could see people running up the hill, gunshots becoming stronger. I said, "Ricardo, you are fighting for your life and your position now." His face was very pale. After a long pause, he said, "Let me go." "I will let you go," I said. "If you agree we are on the same side now." Ricardo nodded. I could tell Ricardo's nod was unwilling, but in this situation, he had no choice but to work with us. The Hook gang, made very angry by Reagan, was attacking the hill, capable of anything. And he had to think about the chance we would defeat him with us in a desperate last fight. But I knew our situation was just as dangerous. Ricardo might not care about his own safety and could act wildly. Letting him go and letting him arm his men on the hill was a risk itself. There was no time to think too much. I let Ricardo go. He ran to the hole and jumped in. Bullets were already flying over our heads as 40 or 50 Hook gang members reached the hillside. Ricardo shouted orders from the hole, and I stood behind him, watching. He told his men to grab weapons and yelled, "Don't listen to that American. I am fine." But Reagan's voice made a loud sound through the megaphone. "Our leader is under their control, speaking against his will. If we let him stay captured, the Hook gang is finished." With his shouts, the loud sounds from below came closer. I pulled Songjian into the hole. The hole became our temporary fort. One Hook gang member jumped out, shouting, "We are not captured." But in the middle of his sentence, a bullet went through, and he fell. Ricardo's face became more serious. He slowly raised his hand, his lips shaking, then hit it down, shouting, "Fight back." The 12 or so gang members at the edge of the hole started shooting. Bullets flew, shouts were heard, and the fight was as fierce as a full war. Ricardo's group was small but very good. Their shooting was deadly. Many attacking Hook gang members lay on the hill with bodies. Songjian and I stopped for a moment. I quickly climbed up, bending low at the edge of the hole, and shouted down in the local language, "Ricardo is fine up here. Don't believe the Americans' lies. If you don't believe me, raise your weapons and come see for yourselves." The gunshots and shouts were very loud, but I was sure my voice was heard. Moments later, Reagan's shouting and the gang's arguing came from the bottom of the hill. The gunshots started to become quieter. I grabbed a rifle and turned to Ricardo. "Mr. Ricardo, don't you think if Reagan stays alive, this confusion will be impossible to control?" He nodded. "You are right. If I defeat him from up here," I said, "how will you pay us?" Ricardo's face showed doubt. He looked down the hill, where a thick crowd moved around. Reagan was jumping around, gathering men, but he was over 100 yards away, a difficult shot. Ricardo looked at the scene then said, "Can you really do that?" I smiled. "I can try. If I succeed, what is the deal?" He made a sound. "You know the moment you show your head, you are a target?" Reagan is a very good shooter. "Of course," I said. "If you shoot at someone, you are a target too. That is fair play. If I die, you lose one enemy though right now, I am your friend. If Reagan dies, you take full control, no more rebellion." Ricardo thought about it. "All right, if you succeed, we share the money as you suggested 50-50, I looked at Songjian. His face was serious. "Be careful, Wesley," he said. I took a deep breath, held the rifle, and crawled slowly to the pit's edge, stopping there. Both sides had stopped shooting. The only sounds were Reagan and a few gang members arguing below. The hilltop was very quiet. Ricardo and his men watched me with strange looks, probably wondering why I was not afraid of being shot. They were not wrong. Finding Reagan would take minutes, during which I would be open to many shots. It was a fight against me. I knew the risks, but the situation forced me. If Reagan was not stopped, the Hook gang's arrest would make our position impossible to hold. His death would make everything simple. That's what Song Jian and I thought then, but later events showed us we were wrong. That is a story for another time. I stopped at the edge of the hole, slowly looking out with just my eyes. A bullet went past, touching my head with its heat. I moved back quickly as 2 more shots kicked up loose dirt, covering my face with soil. I made myself steady. Reagan's voice was heard below. You say Ricardo is not controlled? Then why does he not show himself? Why? The gang below shouted, Ricardo? Ricardo! I knew if Ricardo dared to stand up and show himself, Reagan's plan would fail. But when I looked back, Ricardo's face was pale, his body shaking slightly. Why not step out and let your men see you? I asked. He spoke softly. You just saw Reagan's aim. I said coldly. Reagan would not dare shoot you in front of everyone. Ricardo shook his head. Is our deal still on? I cursed quietly. Coward. In that moment, I did not realize that besides being a coward, he was also a clever snake. The shouts of Ricardo, Ricardo, became louder but then became quieter, the gang clearly disappointed by their leader's absence. I carefully pushed aside the dirt in front of me, moving slowly to avoid being seen. After about 3 minutes, I had made a small hole to look through. I saw Reagan leading over 100 men, moving slowly up the hill. I raised my rifle, but my movement was too fast. The gun barrel poked out from the dirt. In that moment, a shot was heard. A sudden pain went through my wrist, and when I pulled back, half the barrel was gone. Reagan's shooting was terrifyingly accurate. There was no time to wait. I threw the broken rifle aside and shouted, "Give me another gun." A Hook gang member threw me a new one. Looking through the hole in the dirt, I saw Reagan coming closer now, just 60 or 70 yards away. He was clever, staying behind 3 men in a line to protect him. 2 were white, 1 looked Indian. The Hook gang was a safe place for international criminals, so an Indian among them was not surprising. This setup made hitting Reagan harder, but it also showed that if I could defeat him, the situation would become stable as I had thought. I was extra careful this time, slowly moving the rifle barrel through the hole I had dug, then making it a little wider to see my target better. As I moved the loose soil, it shifted. Reagan instantly raised his gun and shot at me. As he did, the 2 men protecting him moved apart briefly. I took the quick chance, pulled the trigger, and immediately threw myself backward. The shots were heard almost at the same time. Before I hit the hole, a pile of dirt fell on me, clearly moved by Reagan's bullet. I realized why Ricardo was so afraid to show himself. Reagan was trying to kill him. Reagan could not have known it was me shooting. He just shot at any movement, not missing a chance to kill Ricardo. I landed in the hole as many shouts came from the hill. Song Jian, tense, asked, "Did you hit him?" I was usually confident in my aim, but in this confusion, I was not sure. The noise below suggested my shot might have hit Reagan, but I could not be certain. I jumped up to the edge of the hole and looked down. A happy shout came from me. Reagan lay in a pool of blood, surrounded by a confused group of Hook gang members. My shot had killed him. I turned to Ricardo. "Reagan is dead." But to my surprise, his voice was cold, almost not caring. "Turn around." His voice hinted at something very wrong. I turned around fast and stopped, my breath caught. A Hook gang member had a gun pressed to the back of Song Jian's head. Song Jian's face was serious. Ricardo wore a sly, mean smile. I could not speak. I had thought Ricardo was just a coward, but I had not realized how clever he was. He had used us from the start, and now, with Reagan gone, he was turning against us. Ricardo said coldly, "Mr. Wei, drop your weapon." I wanted to shoot him, but I could not risk Song Jian. I threw the rifle into the hole. "Mr. Ricardo, I said. They say you are a smart person. Now I see it is true.